I'm Patrick.
And I'm Laura. This is our tiny house. And we wanted to talk to you today about the top 4 reasons why we decided to live in a tiny house on wheels. And I think we'll start with number 1, the most important reason that most people move into a tiny house on wheels, and that's for financial freedom. We had a really big goal that we wanted to lower our cost of living so that we would have more freedom in our finances, so that we would be able to travel more frequently, so that we would be able to pursue our hobbies, put more time and energy into the things that we're interested in doing on the side, rather than having to work constantly just to pay for our housing. And it really started out with the process of saving for the tiny house so that we could pay for it in cash, and therefore we wouldn't have as much of a financial burden month to month to pay our bills and pay our utilities. So at this point, we are living in the tiny house, and we were able to rent out the condo that we were living in before, and we went from living in 1,400 square feet to moving into 192 square feet, so it was quite a big change.
In the grand scheme of things, that was the main idea for the condo, to use it as a investment property. Now we're able to do that and not have another mortgage to put more weight and stress on us. Now, if we get a bad renter or something happens, we can afford it. It's not a big deal because we're just paying for a lot fee for this place, which is pretty affordable.
Mm-hmm. It's a big difference from paying a mortgage every month and paying the utility bills that it took to run a 1,400 square foot condo to having under 200 square feet. Our utility bills are considerably smaller, and we don't have to worry about getting into a spot where our finances are tight. We have a little bit more wiggle room, and that really takes a lot of the stress off.
And you hear all the time from the TV shows that you have to pare down, and you pare down again, and it's very true. I thought maybe that was a little bit of BS, like, you pare down a little bit, you'll be alright, you'll figure it out. No, you really do have to pare down and get down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
And you get to a certain point where you're actually getting rid of stuff that's actually good. And yet, it's...
Yeah, in the beginning it's easy. You get rid of things that you don't wear, things that you haven't used, junk that builds up in your kitchen that you didn't even realize was back there, and that's the easy part. But then when you start to actually move into the tiny house, you really get a concept of how much space you actually have and how quickly you fill that up with the things that you have, like your clothes. And then we started to pare down again. And even today, 6 months after being in the tiny house, we still find things that maybe we're not using that much, or things that you don't wear that often. They end up at the bottom of the pile, and we get rid of it because it just takes up space. And in the end, it gets in the way, and it's more of an inconvenience to have that extra stuff sitting around and just taking up space. So the second reason that I wanted to live in a tiny house was a big one for me, and that was environmental reasons. I wanted to live in a structure that has a lower impact, that requires fewer resources to run, and something that would be easy to convert to an off-grid property eventually. Right now, we still use the utilities at the campground that we're plugged into, but we're saving up to be able to make the conversion to having a solar setup and having a water catchment system and having an off-grid system with our toilet, and everything can be self-sufficient so that we don't have to have a plug-in. And then eventually we would hopefully get our own piece of land and be able to do kind of a homesteading situation and grow some of our own food and have a really self-sustainable kind of situation where we can support ourselves with less financial burden, but also in a way that is having less impact on the environment.
Number 3 would be travel, the freedom of being able to travel. Not necessarily vacation travel, but the ability to, if something happens with both of our jobs, we have the ability to move and go where the work is. And then one of the major things is when you travel or when you move, the major stress is moving your stuff. Boxing, trying to figure all that out. Well, with this, it's a lot easier. Everything's here. We can just pretty much strap it down or put it in boxes, but it's all right, self-contained. We can go wherever the work is if we possibly have to. Hopefully we don't. But you never know, especially now with everything going on.
It gives us a lot more flexibility. If a job opportunity comes up, we don't have to worry about selling a house, closing a house, finding a buyer for our house. We literally just hook it up to a truck and have it moved to another location with all of our belongings already inside of it. It makes that process much more manageable.
The other big questions you usually get is, why did you get a tiny house instead of an RV? Well, an RV is great for traveling around the U.S. and it's great, but the walls are about this thick. With this, it actually is a house on wheels. It's about 6 inches of insulation, which is great for the utilities. But it actually, and it's built, has drywall. It's built like an actual house.
Yeah, it's all the same materials that you would find in a house. So in New Jersey, it gets really cold. I think it was 26 degrees last night. And we need the insulation because we're living in this full time. So we want to stay warm during the winter. In an RV, it's going to take a lot more resources to keep that space warm enough to live in. In the tiny house, it's much easier to keep it livable and comfortable because we have regular walls and a regular roof. And it doesn't feel like an RV because we have a really high ceiling. That makes a huge difference. In most RVs, it's a very low ceiling and it can make it feel closed in and claustrophobic. When you walk into our tiny house, we have very high ceilings and the 2 lofts make it feel spacious. Even though the floor plan is under 200 square feet, it doesn't feel like it. The fourth reason that we really wanted to live in a tiny house on wheels was just for the overall experience. It's not something that most people get to do in their lifetime. Most people just live in a traditional house or an apartment. Living in a tiny house comes with its own entire set of challenges and experiences. We get more freedom, but we also have other responsibilities that we have to take care of that are unique to a tiny house. And that's really been the interesting part of the experience. Learning to live with another person in under 200 square feet, sharing your space, being able to pare down your belongings to only the things that you absolutely need and absolutely love. All of those have been challenging and the kind of fun, interesting parts of this experience. And I think another part of the experience is just seeing what we're able to do with our extra time and our financial freedom in the future, because it really has opened up a whole world of possibilities to us.
And we're just in the beginning of exploring them. You kind of have to get out of the same routine as being in a house, because you will have more freedom. You're like, oh, what should I do today?
Yeah.
Well.
Part of the experience of transitioning from 1,400 square feet to under 200 square feet was an aspect of me trying to live the lifestyle of a yogi. So I've been studying yoga for many years, and in yoga we follow a principle called aparigraha, and that means non-grasping or non-coveting. And a big part of that is not having an excessive amount of physical items in your life, of not hoarding material possessions, because that's not where the quality comes from in our life. It's an idea of letting go of things and living simply so that you can have more experiences and put more quality into the things that you do get to do. Okay guys, thanks for watching. We're going to have a lot more videos talking about different aspects of our tiny house, our travels, trips that we take on Patrick's motorcycle, and all sorts of other things that we get to experience in this rather unusual lifestyle that we're living.